Stop thinking HR's biggest challenge is keeping up with technology. That's not the real problem. I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is The Future of Work with AI, where we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work. And today we're diving into something most HR professionals are getting completely wrong: the assumption that if you just implement the right tools, everything will magically get better. Here's what's really happening. We've got 35 years of HR evolution packed into one conversation. John Baldino, president of Humareso, has watched HR transform from literal paper resumes filed alphabetically on graph paper to AI-powered recruiting system. But here's the kicker. We keep making the same fundamental mistake over and over again. John's going to reveal why we approach every new technology as replication instead of innovation, taking what we did before and just doing it faster instead of asking why we were doing it that way in the first place. We're talking about the progression from newspaper classified ads to Monster to Indeed, and why each transition left organizations stuck in the same broken patterns. Plus, John's dropping the most powerful mindset shift I've heard all year: the difference between because thinking and so I thinking. One keeps you trapped in victimhood, the other puts you back in control of your career and your organization. This isn't just about HR keeping up with change. This is about recognizing that we're all stuck in reactive patterns that were built for a world that no longer exists, and the organizations that figure out how to be proactive instead of reactive are going to own the future. Ready to stop replicating old problems with new tools and start innovating your way forward? Let's dive in. Awesome. Well, welcome, John. Why don't you give us a quick intro? I know you've been in the HR world for a long time, and the HR tech space as well, and help everybody of all sizes. But why don't you just give us a quick intro?
Thank you. Yep. So I'm John Baldino. I am the president of Humareso, which is a big picture HR consulting firm. So a lot of our work is SMB mid market, with some enterprise level work as well. I have been in the space for 30 plus years, and it's been fun to kind of see the evolution of the work in all that time, not just from a types of company standpoint, which is real, but just the way work gets done within those organizations, and the full boat competency perspective on talent that has to be considered, and the connection and engagement of that talent in the work that's being done. So it's been fun for me all these years to kind of watch that evolution, have my hands dirty in that evolution. And now to be, I don't know, HR emeritus, I feel like I'm like rapidly getting towards the old man status.
Yeah, I was gonna say you
Of
don't you
HR.
don't you don't look old enough to have 35 years of
You're
experience. You started
sweet.
at
You're
15 or
sweet.
something
It's
like
a
that.
whole
But
lot of rubber bands pulling
right.
all the skin back here. Don't you
But
worry.
but it's actually kind of interesting because when you think about 35 years, right, which is the span of kind of like a normal person's kind of like their career,
Yep.
and you think about the last 35 years, that is a huge amount of change, not just from ups and downs of the economy and like progression of society and all that stuff, but just if we just say from a technology standpoint
Oh
in
my
HR.
gosh.
I mean, 35 years ago, we're talking about mailing resumes,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah.
And
And
filing
paper
cabinets
applications
and
and
paper
all of that.
applications.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yep.
entered the space would have been like 20 years ago, so that would have been like 2006. Somebody asked me to like build an applicant tracking system, and we're officially, 80 plus percent are at that point using emailed resumes and maybe a web form for that paper application. They'd taken the resume plus application process and just put it online. Hadn't
Hmm.
really rethought about it other than like Outlook is now full of my resumes instead of a folder. And we were still thinking in folders. Like
Yes.
I had a physical folder. Cool. Now I have a folder on my desktop with all these resumes in it and an inbox in Outlook that I'm tagging, and I'm making folders of all these applications. And that, 2000 range, there's enough internet, enough web-based software that you're like Teleos and brass
Brass
rings
rings.
and
Yeah.
bullhorns and all
Yep.
those guys, and but they're at the top, like big enterprise are using, and
Big.
the
Yep.
SMBs are not. And '06 is Applicant Pro starts. Who else? Like, yeah, there's a bunch of these little startups.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny you're saying this, because I have visions of I mean, that was even advancement from where I started, right? I started in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about, I was in personnel. You're talking about literal folders with resumes in them, paper
Hmm.
resumes, and you're organizing them. And you really wanted to find the person or people who could organize those because they knew how to use graph paper. I'm not making this up. Graph
Right.
paper to almost like a an Excel spreadsheet, what we would know as an Excel spreadsheet, but they'd have a graph paper that they've created, got a ruler, made lines thicker than the lines that were already on there, so that you would organize the resumes that you had in there alphabetically. Literally, every time you get a resume, you thumb through, okay, and
Hmm.
put it in the right alphabetical order, and add to and have that sort of opening spreadsheet to kind of keep
Right.
things organized and color coded and all of that. We used highlighters, and it's funny when I tell, share things like that because people are like, what? You did not go on. That's why you talked about brass ring and bullhorn and all that. I think more about the advent of Monster and Career Builder because we still were doing so many ads in the newspaper,
Yeah.
right, for roles. And so that turned everything on its head from the, TA pseudo sourcing kind of end of things because we didn't have anything like that
And
before. It was like, what? People are going to go online? What?
100%. And I think you think about that progression, the I drew a log to I got Quattro Pro or Excel, right? Or Lotus 1, 2, 3, right?
Lotus.
Which don't
Oh,
exist
yeah.
anymore, right?
Oh my gosh,
Um,
Lotus.
but that became like, oh my gosh, I can do this, but online. But in each of those progressions, it's always interesting to watch and go, okay, you took what you were doing and used this new tool to do it, but the great organizations maybe rethought why they were doing it.
Yeah.
And so you go,
Yeah.
okay, we were doing it in the newspaper. Now we have Monster and Career Builder and like AOL chat, all these like we took classifieds of Craigslist is the one that still looks kind of the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
For
you
sure.
think about that of like we were paying per word. So we were really small ads. And
Oh
those
my
first
gosh.
ads on Crew Builder and Monster, they're still, well, I just put it online, not thinking I can put so much more information in here now. I could actually describe this job better, but using the word
Absolutely.
describe sounds like description. So we got a nasty looking description for that. Let's just post that crap in Monster and Career Builder. And Applicant Pro was '06. The housing crisis hits in '08.
Mm-hmm.
We roll into that with Monster and Career Builder. We roll out with Indeed.
Yes.
Literally, that
Yes.
progression happened in that thing of job postings to job boards that are search engines.
It's funny that you're saying that though, because I think part of it, to come back to the point that you were making about looking at the tool, right? Like we 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 often, even today though, I want to make sure, I think this has been thematic for us for a while. Um, we look at a new tool or an advancement of a tool to be more about replication of what we're currently doing than the advancement of what we're currently doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make this better? And it really lends itself right now to this conversation about AI
Oh yeah.
because it is really pushing that perspective. You aren't necessarily going to just be able to get away with, well, we were using Craigslist, now we're using Indeed, and so we're doing the same thing effectively, but just putting it in different. I think when you start looking at the way in which you've got agentic AI that's kind of embedding into things at the moment, right? At I should say every moment, it feels like
Mm-hmm.
that's how quickly things are moving. When you're then this isn't about ageism, but when you're 20 plus years in your career, it is more difficult from a behavioral modification standpoint to approach these components of, say, tech in this regard and look at it to say, how can it redefine what I'm doing rather than slip it back into replication? Maybe it
Yeah.
makes me faster, but I'm doing the same exact thing. That's the
Yeah,
wrong way to approach it,
100%.
right?
And I don't think it's always, you could say it's age. I think it is time in the problem. Because even
Mm,
somebody who's been doing
mm,
a task for 5 years
yep.
has reached this like comfort with the way it's being done, almost potentially tipping to the elitism where they go, I'm so focused on the minute details, I miss the forest for the trees, right? And so it isn't just, oh, I'm 60 years old, I'm stuck in my
Right.
ways.
Oh no.
Dude, it could
Right.
be
Right.
like
Right.
the barista's been doing it for 5 years and they're stuck in their ways. But we tend to be very good as organizations and as people at iterating. We're adding new chunks. But innovation requires us to question the premise, and that is very time consuming. It's very difficult. The bigger your team is, the more it
Yep.
disrupts situation. And you're so busy doing your main thing, rethinking it takes time. And I think a lot of times we think of it as like we have to do one or the other. But it in the life cycle, it means that the small startups, that's why Indeed shows up.
Yeah.
It's this is a human cycle. This is just a business cycle of like disruption. I think it's called the disruption cycle. It's like,
Yeah.
and you could think about it from orgs like Career Builder and Monster, which I know was just announced, like are pretty much gone.
Gone.
But their iteration versus Indeed's innovation coming in going, well, we don't have any built-in approach, so we rethought how it could work. Their rethink, and it's really interesting because like if we go back that, because anybody listening to this who's in HR knows this thing but may not have caught it, the rethink was the progression of companies pay for ads, and therefore a job board has paid ads on it.
Mm,
Indeed's rethink was that's a bad experience because there's jobs missing. How could we get all the jobs that would require us to not charge? Because if you charge for the practice you want, you get less of that practice. And the practice they wanted was posting jobs. So when Career Builder charged for it, you get less of it than you would get if it was free. But that one switch
yep.
completely changed the world.
Well, and you also have, it's a great point. You also have, so you talked about Indeed. So now Indeed has raised its prices.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about being in this disruptive cycle. This will push some other players that have been on the back burner, who've been noodling with some things. This is the right time for them to push that forward because you can only keep raising prices for so long. And
Sure.
so that is going to disrupt as well, where you've got, hey, we can't, the part of the reason why Craigslist worked for as long as it did was it was free, and then it moved to like $20 or something like that, right? It was nominal. We've got organizations that are spending not tens of thousands of dollars a month on Indeed. At some point, you're the director of finance of that organization, and you're saying we are in a, at best, pseudo recessionary time. This line item can no longer be what it is. We've got to change that contract with Indeed. We're not hiring as much as we needed to. Um, it's got to change. And if they don't want to change, then we're going to keep that in mind for the renewal and make a decision to go elsewhere. And someone is going to find their way how to get in there and find a spot. That's the evolution of how so many tech products have come in if they've penetrated the market. They're solving a problem in a fresh way, a fresh perspective, and even a fresh pricing model in some instances. And it's
Right.
really turned things on its head. And that's good.
Yeah, I think I 100%. I think the interesting thing will be if it causes us not to question the price, but the source. And
Mm,
what I mean by that is right now you have certainly there's a high cost on job boards, but we are in a quasi monopoly situation. You know, LinkedIn's there on the upper side, and
yeah, you're
Facebook
right.
had the opportunity and backed out of it.
Yep.
Nobody has the
Google did
answer.
too and backed
Yep.
out of it. Yep.
But what we have right now from at least the clients I hear is massive increase in applicant flow. Like huge applicant flow
Yep.
increases because of AI and because, and this is an important thing for everybody to understand, job seeker adoption of AI, they are much less risk averse than HR is. And
Yes.
so they're adopting it at a rapid
Yes.
pace, which means they're 5xing their applicants per job. Like they're just blowing up inboxes, right? Which doesn't just mean that, Indeed raised their price and the price of Indeed is here, but also the quality of applicants is coming down. Even worse, like we thought it
Oh
was
yeah.
low, but the quality of applicants from job boards comes down. And so if you're in HR right now and you're going, we should find a different job board that is a better price or whatever, I would question you and say, are you sure that the job board as a source is really the winner? Because I know you work with Aaron, and back when I was at Applicant Pro, like our one of our big features that got the least amount of use was employee referrals. And if you actually
Yes.
do the data and you look at it, your conversion rate, which would be what percentage of applicants you actually hire, is like 1 out of 6 on
Hmm.
employee referrals, and it's now probably 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 200 from job boards.
Hmm.
Just and so if you do the reverse of
Yes.
that, if you're an
Yes.
HR person, it's I have to screen 99 people to get to a hire, or I have to screen 5.
Yep. Yep.
That
And
should be an aha.
it should be, but this is part of the replication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conversation that we were having. I think that that's where it requires an HR person to first say, I need to keep the problem that I'm trying to solve at the forefront, rather than trying to say I need the way in which I've been solving it to work better. That's not the same thing. So
100%.
the idea of being able to look at something like Aaron that you mentioned from an employee referral standpoint with a dedicated lens towards that. How do we affirm existing staff in whatever capacity to say this role is open in
Mm-hmm.
our organization? You, with what you do in our organization, even more so, might have some great insight into the kind of skill sets, the kind of knowledge base that we need for somebody who's coming in. Does anyone come to mind? And if someone does and we wind up hiring them, there are reward related components to this, and it also opens the door for one or two other things. Okay, great. But if you have an HR person who's like, well, we've got, this applicant tracking system that we're using, and we tell employees that, we have the link hanging up on a flyer in the break room, and tell employees that they could use that link, the link that they'd have to type in because it's on a piece of paper on the wall. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
right. We tell them they could use that link, and if they stay with us for 6 months, we'll send them $200. Like, you are trying to say that the way that I'm doing it while not working is what I know. That's the message. And we don't accept that in other components of the business, right? We're looking to innovate and expand and approach differently and figure out how to get different raw materials that we need if we're in manufacturing or certain types of tech. Like, we're doing that. Why would we be okay in the people business to try to treat dynamic beings in a very, very static way? It doesn't make sense.
I think I want to bring this up, and this may be offensive, and that's why I should bring it up. But
Yes,
for a
I've
group
lived for
for a
offensive.
group of
Yeah.
people in HR that are supposed to be the bastions for reducing bias, and we think about bias and all of those things, which is a problem, and I'm not making light of it at all. But when you think, let's take employee referrals as a good example, there are huge biases about different parts of that, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the built-in like beliefs that are not questioned,
Right.
such as like if we don't pay out at 6 months and validate they'll stick around, our employees will misuse this to game the system for 200 bucks,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Huge bias. And if I say that out loud in front of HR people, you get this and you're like, wait a second. A six-figure programmer has nothing better to do with their time than gain your $200 employee referral bonus.
Right.
Huge, like, and you wouldn't use that. Or hey, I'm putting friction in place, like you said, they got to type in a link. I've got clients that they got to fill out a form,
Yeah.
like with the
Right.
person's name and contact info and all this stuff, and you're like, this is a huge amount of friction.
Yeah.
You're
I
making
have to,
this
the
hard.
job role I have to fill in, and
Mm-hmm.
like, don't you know all this? Why are you asking me to,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't make
Or
me want to refer
yeah.
anybody.
Or the one of like, we believe they know. Well, it's in the handbook, and we told them on orientation they get paid for this. And you're like, they haven't heard you say anything about this for a year.
I
You don't
mean,
like you
really.
pay it under the covers. It's not, you go back to a couple core adages of like what's measured matters, what's talked about matters. Well, if you took measurement and talked about of employee referrals and said, in the average organization, do they hear about it? Are they thanked out loud? Is somebody congratulated? Is it highlighted? Employee referrals doesn't gain that type of. A new hire is, hey, Joe's here. We just hired him. At Applicant Pro, I was a big like proponent of employee referrals. It was my thing. It was what I was speaking about at Sherm all the time. And so I'd full stop every company meeting. It's like, so you just announced Joe. Where did Joe come from? Like, I want everybody here to
Yeah,
hear this. Did he come from Indeed? No, he didn't. Did he come from, ZipRecruiter? No, he didn't. Cool. He was referred. Cool. Who referred him? Sally referred him. Awesome. Sally, thank you. Like, that was worth more than the $200. Sally,
right.
thank you. But then
Yeah.
we would go a step further of like, Sally, how do you know Joe? Joe, how do you know Sally? Oh, she just posted this link in Facebook. I'm like, oh, weak connection. Cool. Can everybody see this? We're not looking for a BFF. Which means if it's a weak connection, like I posted in Facebook, you don't get that same whole we're replicating bias and well, because Sally's a white 20 something, she's going to only refer white 20 something. She referred Joe. He's old enough to be your dad. It's because she posted in a Facebook group.
Right. Right.
But that just surfacing that and talking about it, HR gets if we were talking about our values. They're posted on our wall. We talk about them in every meeting. You say that our team doesn't know it, so we talk about it even more. We try to highlight it in our company. We have this month's value is, but we don't do that with employee referrals, and then we're surprised it doesn't work.
Well, we don't do it quite honestly with a lot more than we do it with. So the you mentioned the employee handbook just as another simple example. We treat the employee handbook too often in human resources as a book. We believe the title we've given it, that it's a book. It isn't a book. It is a mini encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reference guide. When someone is an employee should know, I can look at this thing because I don't remember, I want to know what's the policy around benefit eligibility, or what about when I can use PTO? How long do I have to work here before I use it? I don't know, something like that. Well, they look at the encyclopedia, the reference guide. They are not going to sit by and large and read from page 1 to page 70. It's not a book like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have conversations with people as if they should have. Now, the problem with that is twofold. One, it was never designed to be that. And so you're asking someone to sort of, again, square peg, round hole type thing. But the other thing that it does is that it puts the onus negatively to the employee. And what I mean is, it's not that you've changed from giving the employee access to the handbook whenever they want as a positive, but now have used it in a punitive fashion. Well, did you check the handbook? The answer's in there. That doesn't invite people positively into the process of learning. So now take that forward. If that's their only experience message wise within an organization about an approach to learning, how excited do you think they're going to be for this platform that you're trying to put into place for learning? How excited do you think? Because their spirit of what they understand is, it's all on me, I'm on my own, and if I don't understand it, I'm the idiot. Well, that's not going to be a great way to get things going from a learning standpoint. But meanwhile, you have a value on the wall that says, we're always learning, right? Whatever that value might be. And I know as people listen to this, I'm not trying to give HR, I promise you, a hard time. I'm in it. So it's against me as well. We've just got to be wise. I don't want us to be so smart anymore. We've done that. It's time
Mm-hmm.
for us to be wise. How do we use what we have in wisdom and help encourage people along the process, whether it's technology or talent or the combination of the two? How do we approach it in wisdom? We got to ask great questions around, what problem are we trying to solve? What are the options that we have in front of us that we should take a look at? Let's talk through that.
Yeah, and I think it's not like HR is being asked to solve a problem that hasn't been solved. We have it is being and maybe not they're not being asked. Like that this is
Right.
something that great HR people take on themselves, not a requirement. Because the requirement might be compliance. And when it comes to the employee handbook,
Sure.
compliance
Sure.
means you sign that you have it.
Yes.
And and then we're overstaffed or we're overworked and understaffed and we don't have the bandwidth and we don't know how to solve some of these problems. And luckily AI does have the potential to help with a lot of this stuff, but it's not going to help out of the box.
No.
And it's not going to help without HR viewing it as their partner and them learning how it works and to train it. No matter what all the venture funded tech companies are telling you, they aren't going to come to solve your problem. Most likely, the solutions are you learning how it works so you're comfortable with it
Sure.
and starting to invest in that. But as a great example, I could say the same thing about like your iPhone doesn't do X. Go read the user manual. Clearly, it was in there that it said it wouldn't do that.
Right.
But from when you put your
Right.
user experience hat on and go, no, no, like it doesn't matter that it's in there or not. The user wanted A. I better
Right.
figure out how to show them how it would work that so that they have a good experience. And if enough people, like, I don't think there's a single person at Apple who actually believes anybody reads the user manual, right?
I mean,
HR
do you read
needs,
the
yeah,
owner's manual when you get a new car?
yeah.
Do you read the owner's manual? No.
Yeah, and so if you accept that premise and go, well, maybe, I guess Apple could be like, but maybe if we make everybody sign something saying they got it, that would let us say we told you it was in there.
Yeah.
But from an actual like realistic standpoint, especially because you have to see these people all the time, looking for the okay, yeah, but they probably don't care about this as much as we care about it in the same ways that we care about it. And we wish they would, but maybe let's accept the premise that they never will. And that's like a hard thing to swallow. The accountants have to do the same thing of like,
Yeah.
I wish people cared about our spreadsheets and our financial statements as much as we
Right.
do, but the head of sales is never going to. He
It's
just
not
doesn't care.
it's right. It's
Yeah.
not the highest priority for them, right? It is for you
Mhm.
because that's part of your world, right? So I think about um the technology that we've already had. So when you were just sharing there for a minute, I was thinking about all the ways in which, and again, I'll harken back to days gone by. I mean, payroll used to have to, we did it weekly, we did it in-house, we printed those bad boys out right there on the dot matrix. We stuffed the envelopes ourselves. Make sure the right tax codes were in for each week because I was in Philadelphia and we had craziness depending upon how much you
Mhm.
earned that week, what the percentage change was, and had two rulers to figure it all out. Okay, we have these really great systems that are very robust on the payroll side and often are integrated into some HRIS, HRMS type platform.
Right.
When we're the practitioners connected to that, whether on the payroll side or the HR experience, tech experience side of things, if we've not done our due diligence in setting those up well, which you and I probably can talk for hours on all the stories we have around
Mm.
companies that haven't done it, correctly. 6 months in, they're like, this system never worked, blah blah blah. Well, it was never set up correctly. You didn't want to go to any of the implementation meetings. You didn't want to do all the things, and so it's why 6 months later it doesn't look like what the demo was that you originally fell in love with. And so there's an example of us not setting things up well. There's an example of us at times not utilizing what we're paying for. In the consulting work that I get to be a part of, when I log into certain systems for organizations, and I'm like, you have a one of your Achilles heels is your benefits administration. You just struggle with keeping up with deductions and this, that, and who dropped off and all that. You have a benefits administration module right here in ADP or Paycom or whatever system it is. You have it here. It's never been used. They're like, yeah, we never got it set up. Okay, A, why not? B, you're paying for it still.
Right.
How wise is it to pay for something that you're not using? Wouldn't the onus be to get it up and running so that it might solve the current problem that you're having, right? You keep going into the reactive mode, which is so difficult for us to get out of. It really, really is. And technology is supposed to help us not be a cause of additional reactive living.
Yeah, and that's, you could actually jump into pretty much everything from there. We, as humans, are
Yep.
reactionary as a species. Let's just start with that.
Yep.
And anybody who says they're proactive and they're great at being proactive, I almost guarantee has come up with a hack. There's a great TED talk on this. It's like the mind of an expert procrastinator. And if you hadn't seen it, go watch it. Like at some point, the instant gratification monkey gives way to the rational decision maker because there is a deadline.
Yeah.
There's a scary deadline.
Yeah.
And those people who appear to be more proactive, I bet if you actually dug in, you would see that they create artificial deadlines. Like, for instance, I want to work out every day. Okay, well, there's nothing proactive. That will require all proactivity. I'm running a marathon in 3 months. Okay, I am now reacting to a artificially imposed deadline. I
Yep.
told everybody online I'm going to run this marathon. Oh crap. I just elevated that up. And so I think a lot of times it's like we're so busy reacting that we don't allocate a percentage of our time to proactively solving problems so that we'll react to them less. And you could use that with properly setting up your ATS. You could use it with rewriting your job ads. You could use it with like digging into like who we're actually looking for before the manager comes to us. But if we wait,
Mm-hmm.
we react to the manager filling out a requisition. Now the time clock hit. So now we're in a rush. And
Yep.
so but you could almost take, and this isn't just a HR, it's an accountant thing.
Oh
It's
no,
a,
yeah.
it's a human thing. If we bring AI into the mix as a great example, it has a huge promise. Hey, this will make our lives easier, 100%. And it's going to make your lives easier in the same way that Excel does.
That's
Meaning,
correct.
if you're
That's
not
right.
good at Excel,
That's right.
you're going to get a small fraction of its usability and it's going to be the bane of your existence. And you're not going to feel confident and you're not because you're probably not competent and you're going to be reacting and using it a fraction
Yep.
and you're not going to know how bad you are unless you open it up one day in front of somebody like me and you're like, oh crap, I just saw Ryan use Excel in front of me and like, okay, I
Right.
know it's the conscious incompetence kind of model and the, you know,
Yeah.
and AI right now is where we're at big time of like, if you ask an average room of even HR people and say, how good are you with generative AI? You're going to get a whole lot of I'm average. And it's because we don't want to say we're not, even
Right.
if it's even
Right.
if it's like anonymous, and because we haven't seen other people use it. So we don't actually know if we're good or not.
Well, it's I was going to say it's about relativity. Even with like Excel, like you were talking about, I could be the best Excel person at my organization, but then you come in and start using Excel in front of me, and I'm like, oh, like I was the best because comparatively I was the best. But that doesn't mean I am the best when it comes to Excel. There's still so much more for me to learn. And we get very territorial, right? And as humans, that's another
Mhm.
human thing. We get very territorial. And so when that settles in the workplace, it not only creates silos, it really creates division in the way in which work is able to get done. And so, one of the things from a technology standpoint that I always try to remind people of is when you're putting in a tool that is going to impact the organization, then that is organizational. It is not individual.
Right.
And so when you're the HR person or you're the accountant who's picking a software, right, a finance software or an HR software, and your only concern is, will this work for me? Will this give me what it is that I need? That's an individual perspective on an organizational tool.
Hmm.
It is already by its premise set up for problem. It's already
Right.
set up that way, right? So, and I try to say, I try to be very pragmatic and practical on things, right? So when I think about a family, I married, I have three adult kids, but when they were younger and in the house, if I just came home every day and was like, listen, this is how I need things to be When I come home, when I'm here, this is how I need the communication to go for me. This is, if anybody would observe me doing that, most people would be like, my gosh, you are selfish. My gosh, you are mean to your spouse. My gosh, you are cruel to your children. My gosh, you are, keep going. Okay, they'd be right. I would have to own that. When we do it in the workplace, please don't think that people feel any differently.
Right.
If
Well,
you're
not just that.
self-centered, they're
Yeah.
going to look at you a certain way with it.
And if you took the judgment out of it, somebody else would approach it and be like, wow, you are super unrealistic.
Yeah, that
because
too,
because
right.
if you remove the motivation of I just want what I want and everybody needs to comply, the flip side of it is, man, you are giving a lot of power to the likelihood of compliance of people that this is not in their best interest, or
Hmm.
at least their own preview of what's a priority to them. And I think that sets us up a lot of times. One thing I want to circle back on the knowledge thing though, because I think one of the challenges we have, and this is in HR across the board, so we can unpack it like depending on the size. If you are
Yep.
HR army of one, your issue is you do things a certain way, probably the way you were trained. You
Mm.
don't have anybody in your organization to say, is this actually the easiest, fastest, best way to do it?
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
alone. And you probably go, I am alone, you're right, etc. You move into a bigger company and you go, okay, there are other people around me that do it. That doesn't actually make me more likely to raise my hand and say, hey, am I an idiot here? Why is this so hard? Because
Right.
there's all types of like societal pressures inside that little pod of I don't want to look dumb. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to whatever. And so instead, I will sit in my this is the best that I know how to do it. And the bigger you get, now you've got a manager that has power and talks like they know what they're doing. And it's very hard to know if somebody actually knows it. You show up to SHRM, and SHRM has people speak that is generally speaking not a lot of ground level stuff of
Mm-hmm.
let me show you how to use Excel in the right way when you do this thing, because
Right.
those credits are not worth as much as strategic credits, and strategic credits don't come with actionable here's how to do it. And so I think when we bring AI into the mix, those are known things. Those are just like iteration on top of here's how I did it before. These 5 steps will just improve it minorly. When you bring generative AI into the mix and you're like, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know if I'm even using it right. I
Yeah.
don't know how everybody else is using it. If you, at least from my perspective, and I'd love to hear your perspective, if you want to know one hack, find some people who do what you do not at your company and show and tell. Just literally like, hey, we're going to get together for coffee every once a month at 8 a.m. I'm going to show you my ChatGPT. You're going to show me yours. And then we're going to ask questions like, oh, cool. Why'd you do that? Oh, cool. How'd you do that?
Yeah.
Hey, why? And you could take out ChatGPT and stick Excel, payroll, benefits, employee referrals into that pod, but you would actually find your learning. You don't need an expert in the room. You need 5 people doing similar jobs because each of you is great at something.
Right. And I think that, look, a couple of things. One, I think we've become more isolated. And so the thought of doing a knowledge share, as you just were alluding to, I think is a great idea. But I think because of how distributed the workforces are and isolation, how much of it remains over the last 5 years, um, we've got less people getting together. We just do. You'd have even like SHRM chapter meetings that might have had a once a month dinner meeting or breakfast meeting or something at 1/3 of what they used to be, say, pre-pandemic. It has
Mm-hmm.
not come back. People have
Right.
really kind of taken to the separation. That comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of ideation. It comes at a cost of exposure to what's happening in various ways or what could happen. So I think that's a piece that still has to be solved for. I don't have all the answers, but I think that still has to be solved for. The other side of it, I would say, is yes, I know that not everything that everybody does at their organization will work in yours. I know. Okay, I know. But that doesn't mean nothing. right? So we do tend to swing the pendulum one way or the other. And so if I can't get everything, then I do nothing. Well, that can't be what we would encourage of even our talent. We want our talent to dip their toe in. We want them to try and experiment and fail and succeed and ideate and all those things because there's great benefit that will ultimately come from it. The same has to be true for HR and the way in which it approaches in our conversation, AI tech as a whole. Now, I also will say, because I know you've run into this as well, there are still organizations that have prohibitions on AI. And so the amount of experimentation that they can do is very limited because they're blocked from using Copilot or Gemini or
Hmm.
whatever platform that they could normally use within the package that they have. Um, they just don't because it's not available to them. That does make it more difficult. I recognize that. I think, though, that's where outside of work, you've got to kind of experiment with non company related information, create lists, create scenarios, and work then on your own with it for your own edification. Because at some point, many of these organizations that are saying no to the amount of AI that's available are going to have to play nice with it very soon. They're going to have to play nice with it. And so you're going to be ahead of the curve a little bit because you've continued to get smart about it this outside of the confine of work.
Yeah, and I think, man, there's so much there to unpack. Let's see if we can lightning round this out. 100% I agree that we are not getting back together.
Yeah.
And like while I think a lot of us, whether it's an employee inside of an organization, or an HR person inside of a professional development thing, I have this theory, it's called like the bus theory. We've been trained if we just get on the bus, it's going to take us where we're going. And
Oh,
that bus becomes a virtual bus. If I'm in a classroom, there's a teacher there. There always seems to be an adult there, an organizer, a boss, and we are generally not the boss.
right.
And those of us who have a problem with authority tend to get off those buses, and we never want to be on the bus and we won't listen to anyone. And it's why people like me end up building companies because we're like, well, I got to build a place to work because nobody would hire me. Are you kidding? I'm the worst to work with. And so, but if you think about that same thing and you go, okay, cool. So like there's less stuff going along. And I think you could take all 5 or 6 of those points you brought up, and I'm going to introduce one thing. We tend to say, hey, that won't work. And that, like what you just explained,
Mm,
you're right, it doesn't fit because, and we use because to now make our backup argument to dig into it, right?
yes.
Hey, you know what? We're not getting enough applicants, and that's because the labor market's tight. It's because we don't have money for Indeed. It's because, and we use because a lot.
Mm,
Like we use it a lot. And all it is it fires down into our victimhood of this external thing outside of me, outside of my company, outside, my manager, whoever it is. We're just drilling down into it's not my job to fix. There's nothing I can do about this. You know what? People these days, they don't get together as much. Okay, cool. Well, it's because of, COVID and blah, 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 blah. Awesome, right? If you swap that out with, and so I, that's all you got to do. Just swap out with, and so I, you could put a we in there if you're a team player. Clearly, I'm not a team player, so I use I. And so it's like, you know what? We're not getting as many applicants that we used to get. They're as qualified. And so I changed up my job ads.
yeah.
And so I looked at all the sources and picked a new source. And so you know what? Our company has a prohibition against AI because it's so scary.
Yes.
And so I found a resource to come in and teach us all and level up our understanding of what should be scary and what shouldn't be scary. And it opened things up. And so hey, you know what? I don't have access to these people. I go to SHRM chapters and they don't talk about, Excel. And so I created a Zoom thing, reached out to John, invited him on Zoom once with me. And what? You said, yes, look at that. It took one chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
so
love that. And so yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great advice. I
Yeah,
think
and
that
so that just like that right there, like if you
that's a
want a
framework
value,
change. Yeah,
oh,
that's a framework change.
changes everything. Like, hey, look, our employees aren't reading the employee handbook because they don't care about it. And because they, no, and so I turned it into a chat bot. And so I broke it up
Yes.
into 20 messages and I
Yes.
dripped them an email once a week.
Yes.
Like that, and so I pulls the power back to me. I'm the, what is it? I've been listening to this thing every morning. It's like I'm the cause, not the effect.
Mm.
Like I'm the cause of this. So I'm the cause for better or worse. And so
Yes.
I send an email out to the entire company once a week with one little spot of our employee handbook. Cool. They don't got to read it because I'm sending out in front of them. I'm so tired of people asking me questions, and they're asking these questions because they don't read the employee handbook. And so I took all the questions I've been answered, and every week I send one question out with the answer. And
We
yeah.
become too myopic. Honestly, Ryan, like we become very myopic to the problem. We do say we want a solution, and I don't doubt that. I do believe that generally people want a solution to the problem, but when you're so in the problem and the problem directly affects you, how many times do I have to repeat this policy from the handbook? How many times do I have to go in and correct your time card? How many times do I have to go in and then our approach to it is so narrow, because it's me. I'm the one who's now being directly impacted by it. I can try to be more helpful when I'm tertiary, but when I'm in
Mhm.
it, when it affects me, I struggle with it more and I take a side. That's tough for HR. I'm not saying that ultimately we don't have to make a decision, but it's a decision based upon veins of information. So when you do the and so I, you have to take a step back, to look at the problem for the problem and what you can do towards it rather than how it's affecting you. That's what you're doing there in a framework change. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure it's like confirmation bias, right? The what we look for, we see
Yeah.
more of.
Yeah.
What we
100%.
focus on, we get more of. Take that as a
100%.
great example. Like I want more solutions, so I'm going to have to look at more solution possibilities. But if I just stare at the examples of the problem, I'm going to see more problems.
And they're there to find.
Oh,
They're there to
100%.
find.
They're there
Yeah.
all the time to find. And if you just ignored some of those problems, and instead looked at three more solutions, you might find that there's different ways to solve the problem. And I think that's where honestly we're at from an AI standpoint, right? I don't have ChatGPT Plus because my boss doesn't pay for it. Okay, cool. And so I go to Starbucks and buy 17 coffees this month, but what I could have done was spent 20 bucks and got my own version, right? I could have done that, but instead I did this other thing, right? We aren't allowed to use ChatGPT at work because of all this personal information that's in there. But so I took 30 minutes, watched a video on what stuff I shouldn't put in there, and picked some low-hanging fruit, which was writing an employee email to the employees telling them
Right.
about what's in the handbook that they should know.
Right.
Or like what your point exactly on the use it at home, that actually isn't, should not be the response to it being locked down at work. It should be the response, period. Like generative AI is not like Excel, that's a work tool and not a home tool.
Right.
Generative AI is like email and social media and the internet. The more you use it at home, the better you'll get at using it at work, because the problems you have with like that doesn't sound like us. Okay, cool. Do you know why I'm so good at getting it to sound like me? Because I use it to create like stories for two random kids in the back of a car in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
That experience or that skill of getting it to sound fun and funny and charismatic and witty is the same thing I translate over when I'm like, and now I'm going to use it to write an email for my employees. So these are hyper transferable skills. It is the most, I mean, so I luckily I have an experience others don't. 2.5 years ago, I stepped down as CEO. So I stepped down from Applicant Pro as CEO the month before ChatGPT went live to the public. I had 2 years of a non compete, non solicit, too much time on my hands, nothing to do. I had Refer that I'm sending all these emails out. I'm like, I'm just going to mess around with ChatGPT. I picked up my son from, he would have been 15, picked him up from middle school one day and he's like, Dad, have you seen ChatGPT? They were talking about it at school. The teachers were complaining we might be using it to cheat. Have you seen it? 5,000 hours later, not because I'm dumb, like I've used every variation of everything it could do for everything on earth, right? But because I saw, oh my gosh, this is a highly transferable tool. This is something that could be used all over the place.
Yeah.
This is not Excel.
It isn't, and it is, gosh, it is a tool, right? Like
Yeah.
we're not saying it's anything more than that, but a tool is only as good as its use. And so the thought of it is not the same as using it. The openness to it is not the same as using it. And so, everybody and their mother, it seems like, slaps on the AI sticker on the back of their booth, backdrop to so that people will stop by. Okay, I understand that. That could potentially be a bit of a sales ploy or, conversation starter. The proof is really going to be show me and let me play with the way in which AI is incorporated into this platform that you're talking to me about. If I'm going to look to see what it can do and align it to problems I'm trying to solve and problems I don't know that I actually have, which sometimes the exposure to what AI is doing and can do shows you, oh my goodness, I wasn't even paying attention to this thing that it's solving for. Is that a problem for us? I'm not going to buy this thing. Don't let me get distracted by the shiny quarter. But what it's telling me is that might be an area I need to pay attention to. Maybe I go back, do my due diligence, and I find out we don't have a big problem with that. But before I bought something to solve for something I didn't know what was a problem or not, it it should give me enough of a push towards critical thought to see what I need to sort of measure out to see if it's a problem. If you don't have the opportunity to bring in all the tools that you would like for whatever limitations, not just budgetary, but even from a compliance standpoint. I know how some government organizations, there's still some limitations on how you can use certain things. And I know that the HR practitioner in a municipality doesn't have the power to overrule the way in which ChatGPT can or cannot be used in an organization. I know that. But the onus can still be yours, to what we were saying a couple minutes ago, to know all about it, to know how it can be used, because it is going to make its way. It's already made its way into the way in which we're engaging with talent, even if senior leadership says it's not allowed. It's already affecting the talent acquisition process. It already
Oh,
is. So
100%. And
right
they're
now,
and just so that senior leadership knows, they're using it on their own devices.
yes, they are. Yeah,
100%. Do you know how many, even HR
absolutely,
people? I talked to
absolutely,
tons of HR people who are like,
absolutely.
so I go home at night on my personal computer and I create my 10 job descriptions and I email them to myself. And then when I get back to work, I use them.
Yeah.
And and that should be, if you're in HR, the pattern you take. Like, we could use just a little bit more ask forgiveness and a little bit less ask permission.
Well, I always say too, and not to cut you off. I mean, just when
Yeah.
I have senior leadership who's like, "Yeah, we're not ready for all the AI stuff yet," and I'm like, "Okay, so no, we can't use it." Okay, do you use Outlook? Yeah. When you start to type an email, does it shadow prompt you with words to say, "Yeah, it's great. It like finishes sentences for me." What do you think that is?
Right. Oh
Right,
yeah.
right. That's AI. What do you think it is? Right? You can't say we're not using it. You're using it already. It's how. It shouldn't be if. It should be how.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think if we can just like, we'll pivot to this in the end here. One of my big things, because you brought up like you go on the back of the booth, it says AI. And
Yeah.
so there's two main things, and I think a third one that actually belongs in the middle. But there are the LLM companies, and there's a big fight over whether Grok is smarter than Claude is smarter than whatever. So one hack, right? If your IT guys shut down ChatGPT, then go use Grok because they may not have got to it yet. Right? Just a thought.
Yep. Yep.
But like that, we're gonna get to the point where these guys are pretty much equally fighting over the last 1%. It doesn't matter. On the other side, you have the it's going to be baked into my product platform. And I've actually heard some pretty big influencers out there who are like, HR people don't need to actually learn how to use ChatGPT and they don't need to learn how to prompt and that stuff because it's just going to be built into Workday, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 100% is true, but this is a technology that has the ability to react to you. It can be as good as you are at it. And
Yes.
if you want to be able to ask great questions to fill in the blank vendor about how their AI works and if it's safe and why it's acting the way it's acting and why it doesn't work how you wish it would. You need to level up your relationship. And I'm going to go with this because it's a think about it more like it's an assistant than
Mm,
Excel. Your
hmm.
assistant is as good as you are with your relationship with how you communicate with it. And that takes time. It takes an investment of going back and forth and seeing how it works. And the better you get with, say, a ChatGPT, the better you will be at understanding and asking questions of your payroll provider about how their AI assistant that they just baked in works and why it doesn't give you the answer you want.
Right.
Because
Right.
you leveled up your relationship with the underlying technology, which is this language model, right?
It is, it's great advice. It is, maybe to our detriment that we were exposed to Clippy years back.
Right.
Remember good old Clippy?
Uh-huh.
And no shade on Clippy, but there's a component of the way in which we may be approaching AI today that has been unduly and maybe even without intention influenced by Clippy. This is not to be approached as here's Excel and now Clippy is being added on to help give me an idea about where something might be. This is actual programmatic reality of it you said this, learning you as the user and adapting and responding to that and improving because of it. It is something that is advancing. Clippy didn't advance. I'm not mad at him, but he didn't advance. If you're still trying to figure out how to shove AI into Excel, so to speak, into Workday, I will make this fit in the, it can't just stay static. It is dynamically learning. So you've got to be ready for that premise rather than the static Clippy that may be still sort of infecting your brain.
100%. And that right there, the how you view it. I always like to tell people I'm like generative AI is a mirror. So if I view it as, hey, I'm looking in this mirror and saying it's a search engine, I run searches. It's faster than Google, yada, 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 which is the number one use case for it of people and the
Yeah.
least important use case for experts. Just so that everybody hears that out loud. The number one use of ChatGPT is to run a search because I'm tired of reviewing the 10 options and it comes back with a very confident answer that
Yes, it
might
does.
be wrong. And then
Yes.
we go down this whole rabbit hole of like hallucination and it's not
Mm-hmm.
right and where is
Mm-hmm.
its information from? You know, the number one thing to do? Quit using it as a search engine. Because out there in the broad world, there's about a billion other uses that are wildly life changing.
Yep.
But because when you stare in the ChatGPT mirror, you see search engine, it reflects back, I can be your search engine. And if you'd stared into it and said, I want you to be my email writer, it would have stared back with that. And if you'd looked at it and said, I want you to be my meeting, note taker and my organizer, and I want you to be my project outliner, and I want you to be my job description creator, it would have stared back with those same things. And so that's number one of like, if you expand your views of what it could do, it instantly responds by becoming that mode. The second thing, though, is when it responds back and you don't like it, your answer goes back to my premise, not, well, that's because, and Sid needs to be. And so I gave it a different prompt.
That's right.
So I said, hey, that's not right. I want you to do something different. What do I got to do? In fact, this is like my number one thing. Ask it the question, what do I got to do to get you to do this right?
Yes.
And it'll be like,
Yes.
well, you could have told me more about the situation. Oh,
Yeah.
what do you want to know about the situation?
Right.
I want to know this, this, and this. Great. Here's all my answers. The average person stops at that one prompt and goes, this is wrong. Well, it's because it hallucinates. It's because it's not just there yet. It's because Elon said that it's not whatever. It's because of whatever. But if you had just been, and so I told it, do it better next time, and it went, well, I need to know these things.
Yeah.
But that right there, this like in a week, no other tool that I've ever seen within a week could give me back my time I'd invested to invest in other things. They're literally
Yep.
nothing, not an
Yep.
ATS. I'm sorry,
Yep.
I built ATSs, I sold them forever. We were not 1 week ROI.
Yep.
Like there was no 1 week break even
100%.
point in ATSs or payroll or HCM. You're still deep in setup mode. But
100%.
this in 1 week could give you back every minute you spend in it.
And that's huge. I mean,
Oh,
the
if you
premise
say you're
alone.
overworked, yeah,
Yes.
if you're a nonprofit, like right now, that's probably my biggest hit. I think we're about ready to start a nonprofit HR share group of just like, let's talk about ChatGPT. Because you guys are underfunded and overworked, and ChatGPT's nothing. But it should be able to amplify what you can do. But you're going to have to change your mirror. You're going
Yep.
to have to invest in
Yep.
learning how to prompt it. You're going to have to get your nonprofit to realize that while it may be insecure for some things, there are ways to secure it.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, that's a great idea. Kudos on that. I think that though, even again, nonprofit for sure, but across the board, any
Oh,
organization, I very rarely come across an organization, if ever, that will say, "We've just we've just hit such efficiency. We've got all this time that we nobody tells me that it's we have more going, especially again in the current climate. There are organizations that are also dealing with the reduction in force that has impacted their HR team broadly, right? Whether that's TA or OD or comp or whatever it might be. So now you've got people who have taken on half a job that used to be somebody else's. Certainly, these kinds of tools that you might have at your disposal to help you be A, more efficient in the work that's to be done, or B, do the work for you in some of those, especially those heavily transactional components. It's worth looking at.
yeah. And I think just the last kind of sign off on that is, and it's worth it to you individually. And I think you need to really personalize that like this is worth
Mm,
it to me. Like
yep.
I believe if you actually put in the diligence, what is it like you need 30 hours of continuing ed credit per year to renew your SPHR?
60
Something like that.
hours,
But
60 hours every couple of 3 years, I think it
yeah,
is.
something
Yeah.
like that. So you're like 20 to 30 hours a year.
A
I
year,
can
20 a
guarantee
year. Yeah.
you the payback on 20 to 30 hours of ChatGPT time on Saturday mornings will not even compare. Like you will
Mm,
look back and be like, this is ridiculous. Are you kidding? Can you see
yeah.
what I can accomplish?
And you could still be in your pajamas in bed. It's all right.
And you can still do your continuing ed credit because you could
Yeah.
just literally feed it the transcript and be like, tell me what John was teaching me and have it teach it back to me and build a plan for how to implement it.
Yes, do that. I have lots of good things that I've said, so let it help you.
Well, thanks, Sean. This was amazing. Thank you a
Thank you very
ton.
much.
Pleasure to speak with you today. And yeah,
Same
we
here.
love you, HR folks. John and
Thank
I
you.
want have nothing but love for the
Nothing.
profession and the
Nothing.
industry. And like honestly, like I mean, it's been you're 35 years into it. I like got drug in here 20 years ago with some random person going, build us an ATS. And like, I don't even know what that is, but like, I guess my programmers could build something
Sure.
like that.
Right.
Nothing but love for like the work and effort
For
and the
sure.
glue that they hold together. It very much is like, yeah, for me, like anything I could do to kind of elevate that space to be like, guys, like your life could be easier, but we're going to have to get through the dip.
Yep.
So
Yep.
thanks so much, John. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks, Ryan. Same here.
Uh,
Thanks for having me on.
yeah. John just delivered a masterclass in why most organizational change fails. And if you're still thinking this is just about learning new software, you completely missed the point. Here are the 3 biggest takeaways. First, stop using because to explain why things don't work and start using and so I to take control of solutions. Second, every new technology gets treated as replication instead of innovation. We take old processes and just make them faster instead of asking why we're doing them at all. And third, AI isn't going to save you if you're still not recognizing it as a dynamic learning partner. What hit me hardest was John's point about territorial behavior in the workplace. We get protective of our little expertise bubbles instead of recognizing that collaboration and knowledge sharing is what actually moves organizations forward. If this episode made you realize you've been replicating old problems with new tools instead of innovating, hit that subscribe button and share it with an HR leader who needs to hear this message. Drop a comment and tell us what's one thing you're going to stop explaining with because and start solving with and so I. Thanks for listening, and remember, the future of work isn't about the technology you adopt. It's about whether you're willing to question why you do what you do and innovate your way to something better. I'll see you next time on the future of work with AI.